My daughter kept asking why she had different colored eyes than me and her dad. I always said genetics were complicated until her school project required blood typing, and the results made me question everything about my marriage. I'm Lauren, 33, female, and I've been married to Evan, 35, male, for 9 years. Our daughter is Lily, 8, female, the kid with the constellation eyes. That's what I call them when I'm feeling poetic, like when the kitchen is quiet at night and the only light is the fridge glow and she's doing that scrunched up grin while stealing string cheese. One iris is mossy green and the other is this ridiculous glacier blue that people stop to comment on in grocery store lines. Genetics are wild, I'd say, and smile like I wasn't holding my breath. I've been saying that since she was 3, and pointed at my brown eyes and Evan's hazel, and said, confused, did I do mine wrong? Evan loved telling the story at barbecues, throwing an arm around me and grinning that sideways grin that used to charm me and now lands like a paper cut. He'd say, this one's a unicorn, and it was always this one, not our Lily, which sounds stupid until you've heard it 50 times and it sits in your ribs like a splinter. He liked to make it a joke. He likes to make a lot of things jokes. He'd talk loud and toss tongs in the air while the men laughed and the women did that polite half-smile down into their plates. If someone asked where she got the eyes, he'd shrug. No idea, man. Guess the genetic slot machine hit jackpot. Once, when he'd had too many IPAs, he elbowed his brother and said, better ask the mailman. And I watched the smile freeze on his lips when he saw my face. He pretended it was nothing. I pretended I didn't feel like I'd been slapped. We went home in silence, and he turned up the music too loud and did the dishes too hard until a glass shattered in the sink. The next morning he bought me peonies. He always buys flowers after he breaks something. I met Evan in college. He was all heat and momentum. Intramurals, improv, internships. My friend said he looked at me like the room had thinned out just for us. He proposed with a scavenger hunt that ended under a bridge by the river, where I was too cold and too in love to notice that he'd joked earlier about my skirt being a lot, and had pouted when I didn't change. My mother, Donna, 58, female, said, he's passionate, like that was a personality type and not a warning. Passion was what he called it when he returned a damaged blender by yelling at the teenage cashier. Passion was how he drove. Passion was also how he cried afterward, chest heaving, promising to be better, forehead pressed to mine like a confession booth. Lily worships him. When he shows up at her softball games in his beat-up cap, she glows like a lamp. He will run the bases with her after everyone leaves, both of them laughing, the sun smearing orange across the outfield. He will also sometimes overcorrect the way she throws, grabbing her wrist and saying, no, like this, too tight, too sharp, and when she flinches he looks stricken, like he can't believe his own hands. Last Tuesday, Ms. Chen, 29, female, Lily's science teacher, sent home a crisp, cheerful packet about a blood typing project. Little lancets, little cards, a little parent-child activity. Discover your family's blood types together, the cover chirped in bubble letters. I stuck it on the fridge under a strawberry magnet next to Lily's stick figure family drawing. Me, Lily, and Evan, all holding hands, except Lily had colored our eyes brown and hazel and hers blue, like she always does. The magnet slipped a little. There's a tiny crack in the wedding photo frame above the microwave. It's been there since the glass fell off the counter the night we argued about me going back to full-time work. Genetics are complicated, I told Lily again when she asked about the eyes while we were making pancakes. She nodded, satisfied, and the dog snored under the table like a tiny machine. Evan came in humming, kissed the top of her head, then mine, and plucked the packet from the fridge. He flipped through it, whistled, and said, ooh, science night. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I know his tells. A little too bright. A little too careful. He slid the packet back under the magnet with this casual, weighted motion, like placing a pawn on a chessboard and already knowing the next 5 moves. I laughed with them, but somewhere behind my ribs, something old and sharp rattled awake. The next night, we sat around the kitchen table with the little lancets and cards from Lily's project kit. I kept trying to make it fun, like a mini science experiment instead of what it really was. She was bouncing in her seat, excited to prick her finger and see the secret codes in her blood, while Evan was unusually quiet, turning the instruction sheet over and over like it had hidden meaning. We went one by one. Lily first, brave little thing, a quick prick and a smear on the card. Oh, positive. She squealed like it was a prize. I kissed her forehead, told her she was braver than me. Then me, a negative, same as my dad. Evan, B positive, just like he'd told me years ago when we first joked about being blood opposites. It wasn't supposed to matter. But when Lily compared the chart on the packet, her little brow furrowed. Wait, if you're a negative and daddy's B positive, I'm not supposed to be O positive, right? That's what it says. My throat went dry. The cheerful bubble letters on the chart blurred. Evan chuckled too loud, brushing it off. Genetics are weird, sweet pea. Doesn't always match the chart. But his hand was gripping the edge of the table so tight his knuckles were white. That night, when Lily was in bed, I pulled the packet back out. I Googled. I cross-checked. Again. Again. Every site said the same thing. 2 parents with A and B plus can have a kid with O, but it depends on recessive genes. It's rare, but not impossible. I wanted to believe it. God, I wanted to. But the way Evan looked at me across the kitchen, half defensive, half daring me to push, that's what twisted the knife. He poured himself a whiskey, stared out the window and said, "Are you really going to do this now?" Do what? My voice cracked. All I'd done was read a chart. He slammed the glass down so hard it cracked the counter tile. Don't start digging. You don't want to find what you're looking for. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there with the wedding photo frame above the microwave in my head, the tiny crack running through the glass like it had been waiting for years to split wide open. And for the first time, I let myself wonder if Lily's constellation eyes weren't some random gift from nature. If they belonged to someone I didn't know. Don't forget to subscribe. The next morning, Evan was whistling while making coffee like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't slammed glass into tile hard enough to leave a chip I'd have to stare at every morning. He asked if I wanted 1 or 2 sugars, his voice almost mocking in how gentle it was. I said nothing. My stomach was lead. I kept replaying his words. Don't start digging. They felt less like advice and more like a threat. When Lily patted in, rubbing her eyes, Evan swept her up into his arms and spun her until she squealed. His smile was dazzling, but his eyes flicked at me over her shoulder, sharp and calculating. It was like he was saying, "See? She's mine. She loves me. Don't ruin it." I tried to shake it off, tried to tell myself maybe I was being paranoid. But when I went into the garage later to grab laundry detergent, I found the packet from school shoved behind the tool bench, folded and greasy like it had been handled too much. He'd hidden it. That was when the panic turned into resolve. That week, I called my doctor's office and made an appointment for a paternity test. Quietly, like I was plotting a crime. I told them it was for peace of mind. The nurse didn't blink. Apparently, they hear that all the time. But Evan noticed things. He always did. He came home early 2 days later, catching me at the dining table with my laptop open on a medical site. "What's that?" His voice was deceptively calm. I closed it too fast. "Nothing, just work." He stepped closer, hand flat on the table, pinning the corner of my laptop like it was evidence. His voice dropped. "You think I don't know what you're doing? You're trying to poison her against me, against us." "She's 8, I whispered. "She deserves the truth." That broke something in him. He grabbed the laptop and hurled it against the wall. It shattered in 2 ugly snaps, the screen hanging by its wiring like a broken jaw. Lily came running from her room, screaming, "Daddy!" He turned instantly soft, scooping her up, cooing, "It's okay, princess. Daddy's just stressed. Mommy's being silly." He shot me a look over her head, icy, victorious. That night, after she finally fell asleep, he sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, muttering like a prayer. "You're not going to take her from me. I won't let you." His shoulders shook, and for a second I thought he was crying. Then he lifted his head, and the look in his eyes wasn't grief. It was fury held on a leash. I realized then that it wasn't just about Lily's blood type. It was about control, about a man who needed to be the center of the story, no matter what it cost. And something in me hardened. If he wanted to play control, I'd find a way to take it back. The next 2 weeks felt like living inside a pressure cooker. Evan's moods swung hard, 1 minute affectionate and playful, the next minute sulking or snapping at shadows. He started showing up at Lily's school pickup when it wasn't his turn, smiling too big at the teachers, making jokes about keeping an eye on his girls. At home, he'd move things. Not big things, small ones, subtle. My car keys in the freezer. My phone charger unplugged from the wall and tucked behind the couch. He never admitted it, but I knew. It was his way of saying, I see everything. You're not as smart as you think. Meanwhile, I followed through. I scheduled the test, told the clinic I'd bring Lily under the excuse of a fun science checkup. It was terrifying how easily I lied to my daughter, but it was scarier not knowing. The day of the appointment, I told Evan it was just a pediatric check-in. He squinted at me, searching, but then just muttered, Fine, call me if she needs me. The relief almost made me dizzy. The nurse swabbed our cheeks, joked about it tickling. Lily giggled, completely oblivious, and I forced my smile until my jaw ached. Results in 7 business days, the nurse said. 7 days that might crack my marriage wide open. When the envelope finally came, it felt radioactive in my hands. I sat in the car in the driveway, heart pounding, staring at the seal. I knew once I opened it, there'd be no pretending, no walking backward into ignorance. The first line confirmed everything. Probability of paternity for Evan Miller. 0%. My breath came out in a sound I didn't recognize. Not relief, not grief. Something rawer, like an animal noise. My entire body shook. And then I saw Evan in the reflection of the rearview mirror, standing at the front window, watching me. That night, he cornered me in the kitchen. He didn't even bother pretending anymore. You got your answer, didn't you? His voice was low, dangerous. And what are you going to do with it, Lauren? Destroy this family because you need a neat little chart? I clutched the counter to keep from collapsing. I didn't destroy anything. You did, when you lied. He laughed, this hollow, broken sound, and swept his arm across the counter, sending plates and glasses crashing to the floor. The dog barked, Lily screamed from her room, and Evan just stood there in the wreckage, chest heaving, eyes locked on me. Go ahead, he hissed. Tell her. Tell her daddy isn't daddy. Watch her break. That was the hook. The point I knew there was no fixing, no smoothing it over with flowers or apologies. He wasn't protecting Lily. He was using her as a shield, daring me to cut through her happiness just to get free. And I decided right then I wasn't going to play his game anymore. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow, I did not expect this to blow up like it did. I've been sitting here at my kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee, scrolling through comments, DMs, even some of the snarky ones, and damn, y'all hit me harder than my own brain's been willing to. Some of you said, Lauren, you're in danger. And I think I needed strangers to put it in black and white for me. Because when you live in the middle of someone else's storm for years, you start normalizing the thunder. Evan slamming glassware, hiding things, watching me through windows, those were just Evan being intense. No, that's not intense. That's control. That's intimidation. A few of you asked if I have somewhere safe to go. Yes. My mom, Donna, lives across town. She's always had this soft, almost naive faith in Evan, like he's just passionate. But when I finally broke and told her about the test results, she went quiet in a way that scared me more than any yelling could. Just whispered, Bring Lily, tonight, don't argue. And some of you told me straight up not to tell Evan I know he's not Lily's father, that if I use that information recklessly, he'll weaponize it against me and her. And you're right. The way his face looked when he dared me to tell her, God, it was like he wanted me to torch her world so he wouldn't have to, like he could sit back and watch me be the villain. So, here's where I'm at. The envelope with the test is locked in my glove box. I've made copies, sealed one in an envelope at Donna's, another in a safety deposit box. Lily knows nothing. She's coloring unicorns and humming Taylor Swift right now, completely untouched by this. I want to keep it that way as long as possible, but I'm not just sitting still. Some of y'all said, make it sweet revenge. One comment that stuck in my head. Don't let him script the story. Flip it so he chokes on his own lies. That hit me deep, because Evan loves his image, the charming dad at the ballpark, the guy with the sideways grin at cookouts. That's his armor. So maybe my revenge doesn't start with telling Lily. Maybe it starts with pulling that mask off in front of everyone he thinks adores him. And to the person who DM'd me saying, flowers after broken glass is still broken glass? Yeah, that one's taped to my fridge now. A reminder. I don't know exactly how this plays out, but I feel the shift. I'm not scared the way I was last week. I'm angry. Focused. And Evan has no idea that while he's watching me, I'm watching him right back. The shift was almost physical, like the air in the house had changed. I wasn't playing defense anymore, I was planning. Evan must have felt it too because he ramped up his act. He became super dad. Every night he was suddenly in Lily's room, reading her 2-3 bedtime stories. He packed her lunches with little handwritten notes, smiley faces, hearts. At softball practice, he was louder than ever, calling out encouragements until other parents started glancing over. It looked sweet on the surface, but I knew it wasn't about her. It was about me. A performance. See how much she loves me? You wouldn't dare ruin this. But what Evan didn't know was that I'd already started laying my trap. Step 1. The school. Ms. Chen, the same teacher who sent home that blood typing project, had always liked me. I stopped by after pickup, just casual. Hey, thanks again for the science kit. Lily loved it. I slipped in a mention of how Evan had been intense lately. How sometimes his discipline felt a little too much. Ms. Chen's eyes softened. She told me if I ever needed support or resources, the school counselor could help. That was the first seed. Step 2. My mom, Donna. She'd been hesitant at first, but once I handed her a copy of the paternity results, her face drained of color. She whispered, "Jesus, Lauren." Then she grabbed my hand, squeezed it hard, and said, "He doesn't get to own the narrative." She promised me that if Evan ever tried to twist things, she'd back me. Publicly. My mother, who used to brush off his passion, was finally seeing the cracks. Step 3. The neighbors. The Wilsons across the street had known us for years. Evan liked to play catch with their son, but he also had a temper. Once he'd yelled at their dog for barking. So one afternoon, while we were chatting by the mailbox, I let a shaky sigh slip, told them Evan had been struggling. I didn't say much, just enough to put an image in their heads. The perfect dad wasn't so perfect behind closed doors. The beauty of it was simple. I didn't have to lie. I just let people connect the dots. The breaking point came the following weekend at Lily's game. She struck out 3 times in a row, and Evan's mask slipped. He stomped onto the field, grabbed the bat from her hands, and barked, "No, like this, Lily. Watch your wrists." His voice cracked across the field, and Lily froze, eyes wide with tears. Parents gasped. Ms. Chen, who'd come to watch, stepped forward. And me? I didn't move. I let it happen. Because in that moment, everyone saw him. Not the charming dad. Not the man with the sideways grin. Just Evan, red-faced, too harsh, towering over a sobbing 8-year-old who could barely lift her chin. The whispers started before we even left the field. I caught Donna's eye in the bleachers. She nodded, once, like now. The mask is cracking. Keep going. That night, Evan paced the kitchen, furious, muttering about people overreacting. He demanded I defend him. I just looked at him and said, softly, "They saw you." His face went pale, then hard. He slammed the fridge door so hard a magnet clattered to the floor. It was Lily's stick figure family drawing. I picked it up, smoothed it, and stuck it back on the fridge. Only this time I placed it crooked. A reminder. His picture-perfect life was starting to tilt. Evan spiraled after the softball incident. He couldn't stand the whispers, the sidelong glances. Every little thing set him off. Traffic, the dog barking, even the toaster burning bread. He smashed a mug against the sink one morning and then, 2 hours later, came home with a bouquet of lilies, forcing them into my hands like they were an apology carved in petals. But the more he tried to tighten his grip, the more it slipped. He started camping out in the living room at night, claiming he was watching the game. But really, I think he was listening, waiting to hear if I made a phone call. if I left the bedroom. Once I caught him going through my purse. He didn't even flinch when I walked in. Just said, "Looking for gum?" Meanwhile, I kept planting seeds. Quietly. Carefully. The Wilsons mentioned at PTA that Evan seems stressed lately. Ms. Chen called to check in, asking if Lily was okay at home. Even Donna told me over coffee, "People are noticing, Lauren. You don't have to carry this alone." Then came the dinner at Donna's house. The moment everything cracked wide. She'd invited Evan, me, Lily, and a few cousins. A family meal, she called it, but I think she knew exactly what she was doing. The air was already brittle when Evan walked in, loud, cracking jokes, trying to own the room. Lily sat beside him, coloring quietly, like she was trying to disappear. Halfway through, Donna stood and said she had something important to share. She looked at me, and my stomach dropped. She held up the sealed copy of the paternity test I'd left with her. "Lauren showed me this," she said, voice steady. "I believe the truth matters more than appearances." The room went dead silent. Evan's fork clattered against his plate. His face drained, then flooded red. "What the hell are you doing?" he snarled, standing so fast his chair toppled. I thought he'd flip the table. Instead, he jabbed a finger at me, spitting, "You did this. You planted poison in everyone's head. You want to ruin me? You'll regret it." His voice cracked like a whip, echoing off the walls. And then Lily, sweet Lily, whispered, "Daddy?" Her voice so small it sliced the tension like glass. He froze, eyes darting between her and the envelope in Donna's hand. For once, he had no script, no joke, no mask, just a man exposed. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the wedding photo I'd brought for Donna's mantle toppled and cracked, glass splintering across the floor like punctuation. The cousins stared. Donna knelt beside Lily, whispering, "You're safe, sweetheart." And me? I just sat there, shaking, because my revenge wasn't about screaming the truth. It was about letting Evan hang himself with the rope of his own unraveling. The mask was gone. Everyone had seen it. Update 2. Okay, deep breath. I didn't think I'd be back here this soon, but the fallout has been nuclear. First off, to everyone who said, "He's going to retaliate, be ready." Holy hell, you were right. After Donna dropped that envelope at dinner, Evan lost whatever thin grip he had left. He stormed out, but that wasn't the end. Not even close. The next morning, I woke up to my phone exploding. Texts, voicemails, even Facebook messages from random acquaintances. Evan had gone on a full-blown campaign, blasting me on social media. Posts about betrayal, about how I was tearing a family apart with lies, about how I was unstable and manipulative. He even dragged my mom into it, calling her a meddling old hag who wanted to steal his daughter. Imagine logging into Facebook and seeing your husband ranting like a doomsday preacher with 47 comments from his buddies saying, "Stay strong, bro." But here's the thing. It backfired. Hard. Remember the softball field meltdown? The whispers had already started. Now, people had receipts. His public meltdown at Donna's, the screaming, the glass shattering. The more he posted, the more people started DMing me, asking if I was safe. One of the Wilsons even came by with a card that just said, "We believe you." I sat on the porch and cried like a kid. Reddit comments replayed in my head. One of you said, "Don't fight him with fire, fight him with sunlight." And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not yelling. I'm not posting rants. I'm quietly letting his own tantrums become the story. Every plate he breaks, every ugly post he makes, it's another crack in the image he built. And here's the sweetest part. Lily's teacher, Ms. Chen, pulled me aside yesterday and said, "If you need character witnesses for custody, you have plenty." She didn't even blink. Just said it like fact. Like the world had already tilted in my favor. I won't lie, I'm scared. He's unpredictable right now, sulking in his car outside the house one night, showing up with ice cream for Lily the next, like he's trying to flip the script back. But I'm not playing defense anymore. I've got the test, I've got the witnesses, I've got my daughter's trust. And for the commenter who said, "Don't just leave, make sure he never forgets why he lost everything." Yeah, That line's tattooed on my brain right now. This isn't over, not by a long shot. The storm came fast. 2 nights after the dinner at Donna's, I woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of tires crunching in our driveway. At first, I thought maybe it was a neighbor, but then headlights swept across the living room wall and didn't move. My stomach dropped. I peeked through the blinds. Evan, sitting in his truck, engine idling, cigarette glowing like an ember in the dark. He just sat there, staring at the house. I pulled Lily into bed with me, heart pounding, whispering it was just a sleepover night. She fell back asleep, clutching my arm, but I lay there wide awake, counting every tick of the clock until dawn. By morning, he was gone. But the damage wasn't. Our mailbox was bent at an angle, like someone had kicked it. A smear of mud across the front steps. The wedding photo from the mantel? Shoved through the mail slot, the glass shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces on the rug. I swept it up, but left one shard sitting on the counter where he'd see it if he came in. A message back. I see you too. Then the escalation turned public. At Lily's school pickup, Evan showed up even though it was my day. He tried to walk her out, hand gripping her little backpack strap like a leash. I stepped in, calm but firm. It's my pickup, Evan. Let go. He smiled too wide and said loudly, You're poisoning her against me, Lauren. Everyone sees it. Parents froze, watching. And then Lily, God bless her, wriggled out of his grip and ran to me. I want mommy. That single sentence cut through everything. The Wilsons were right there. Ms. Chen, too. They saw it. They heard it. Evan's face crumpled like paper. He kicked the car door so hard it dented inward, then drove off screeching. That night, I knew what I had to do. Revenge wasn't going to be a single explosion. It was going to be slow, public suffocation of his image. Every tantrum, every broken thing, every ugly outburst I was documenting. Photos of the mailbox, screenshots of his rants, statements from neighbors. All of it was going into a neat, airtight folder. And then, I planned the final twist. Evan's precious softball banquet, the one where he always strutted as Coach Evan, cracking jokes, shaking hands. His stage. His audience. That's where I'd end it. That's where I'd take off the mask for him, in front of the people whose approval he craved most. And the best part? He wouldn't see it coming. The banquet hall smelled like popcorn and floor polish. Kids in their little uniforms darted between tables, high on soda and sugar cookies, while parents clustered in groups, laughing, clapping when their kids' names were called. The end-of-season softball banquet, the highlight of Evan's year. His arena. He walked in like he owned it. Baseball cap, that sideways grin he always used, the one that made strangers think he was charming instead of volatile. He clapped shoulders, cracked jokes, winked at the moms. For a second, you'd never know he'd been screaming at his daughter on a field 2 weeks ago, or sitting outside our house in the middle of the night like a vulture. But I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. When it came time for Coach Evan to make his speech, he bounded up to the microphone. Couldn't ask for a better team or better parents, he boomed. Applause rolled through the room. He was in his element, soaking in the attention. That's when I stood. Actually, I said, loud enough to cut through the clapping. There's something these parents should know. Every head turned. Evan froze mid-grin, eyes locking on me. His smile twitched just for a second, then he tried to laugh it off. Lauren, sit down, don't... But I walked to the front, folder in hand. My hands weren't shaking. For once, he was the one trembling. This man you've trusted with your kids? He's not who you think he is. He screams at 8-year-olds on the field. He smashes dishes and glass at home. He stalks his family in the middle of the night. And when science proved he wasn't even the father of the little girl he claims as his pride and joy, I held up the paper. He tried to make me carry the lie to protect his image instead of our daughter. Gasps, murmurs. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Evan lunged forward, snatching for the paper, but Ms. Chen was faster. She stepped between us, snatched it from my hand, and read the header aloud. Probability of paternity, 0%. The room erupted. Evan lost it. Red-faced, spitting rage, he knocked over the mic stand, shouting, "She's lying! She's making me out to be a monster! He kicked a chair, sent it skidding into the wall. Kids started crying. Parents grabbed them, pulling them close. And then Lily's small voice cut through the chaos. "Stop it, Daddy. Please stop." Every eye in the room went to her. Tears streaked her cheeks, her tiny fists clenched. Evan stopped cold, chest heaving, realizing for the first time that it wasn't me or Donna or the neighbors. It was Lily rejecting him. The silence was brutal. You could hear the buzz of the overhead lights. Then the Wilson dad muttered, "Jesus Christ," and half the room stood, pulling their kids away from him. Evan tried to follow, pleading, "Wait, you don't understand." But no one looked back. That was the night his mask shattered. Not because I screamed, not because I fought, but because I let the truth show itself under bright gymnasium lights, with the people whose admiration he craved watching him unravel. 2 weeks later, the custody hearing was short. My folder of evidence spoke louder than any testimony. The judge granted me full custody. Supervised visitation only, if Evan even bothered to show. Now, Lily sleeps through the night again. The house is still. The fridge hums, the dog snores, and there's no glass breaking in the sink. Sometimes I catch myself staring at her constellation eyes, one green, one blue, and instead of fear, I feel peace. Whoever gave her those eyes gave me the strength to finally see the truth. And Evan? He can keep his flowers. I've got freedom.